Hey guys, oops, I just realized I need to plug in my microphone. Whoops. All right, hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit better now, so I don't have to shout quite so loud with my Cuban voice. All right, we have got a full house ready for tonight already. We got Mark playing his conga. Man, I like my music, man. I have to say I had a fun time picking out my intro music, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. So yeah, I do start the show now a few minutes early with the hold sign, mainly so that people can start jumping on board. I know the Facebook algorithm gods seem to favor that better, and it seems like more people can find the show this way. All right, so we've got Mark on board. We got Scott coming in from West Virginia drinking his water. We've got Pat Glover coming in from Key West with his IPA in the mug. It's a lot nicer than upstate New York, and I certainly believe you. Yes, we are having the best time right now in Florida. It is like the perfect weather to be a Floridian right now. We got Tom on board saying he's sipping his fresh maple syrup. Tom, I'm so jealous. Seriously, we're like down to this much. We are like, I had to hide it. I had to hide that beautiful bottle from the kids. I'm a terrible mother, I know, but I just love that maple syrup too much. Let's see, we got Ashley on board. Girl, I got your question here. We got Susan. Marshall nodded off, and he's here. Oh, tell Marshall I'll give him a good scratch behind the ears. So guys, welcome. I missed you guys last week. You know, I've been doing the show now for 7 years. And I've probably, in the 7 years that I've been doing this show, I've probably missed doing the show maybe 10 times, maybe 10 times. It's really just a staple now in my life to do this show and in my family's life, actually. So we took the kiddos to our nation's capital last week for spring break. We did a road trip. It was a 15-hour car ride. It was absolutely amazing. My kids were amazing. And I got to say, guys, you know, we got a lot of stuff going on in our country right now, but we sure do have a beautiful nation's capital. We really do. If for whatever reason you've never had the chance to visit, you know, you really should at some point. Everybody at some point should see their own country's capital. And we have an especially beautiful, beautiful capital. You know, the cherry blossoms were blooming. We spent so much time outside walking around this sheer amount of museums. I had forgotten just how many amazing historical museums are just loaded in DC. And the best part, they're free. Oh my gosh, as a mom before, you have no idea how much I appreciated that. But you know, you can't help but feeling a sense of pride when you're in the Capitol and you just look around and you're like, this is a beautiful, beautiful city. And getting to see inside the actual Capitol building and gorgeous, gorgeous architecture and structures and just wonderful history and showing our kids to have a, you know, pride in our country in that regard. So that was my last week, and I have to show off my new mug. One of our favorite museums was the Museum of Natural History, which my kids were just so excited to go finally see. They saw it in the movie, The Night at the Museum, that famous movie. So for them to see it in person, and my son insisted that I get this particular coffee mug from the Natural History Museum gift shop, which I just think it's hysterical. I might be using this mug a little bit for a little while. All right, we got Earl coming in from California. We got Eric on board from Tennessee. There's my Tennessee boy. We got Brittany coming in from South Carolina. Let's see. Oh, Tom, you are wonderful. We got Michelle coming in from Michigan. There's my girl Andrea, my token occupational therapist, who I need and I love. Thank you so much for being here. We got Michelle from Michigan. Michelle, which part of Michigan are you from? I personally love TC. It's one of my favorite cities. Marty coming in from Waco, Texas, eating fajitas and drinking iced tea. Marty, you know how to party right there. That's awesome. I know Ashley says DC is amazing. My daddy is interred at Arlington. Wow. Yeah, no, we got to go to Arlington. I hadn't been there since I was about 10 years old when we saw the changing of the guard. And again, truly a lifetime experience there. It's simply amazing. Mark says, new cool kid. We got Steven says, nice, but not a Cozy Talks mug. You're absolutely true. Thank you for that. Hey, Jerry Ann coming in from Arizona with her cinnamon roll vanilla. Y'all bring some serious drinks to this show. Andrea says, you know, that's an OT mug. That's right, with the adaptive device. There we go. There we go. Reacher and everything. I know. I love it. I love it. It makes me smile. It makes me laugh. All right. I'm going to get started. Well, I should probably introduce myself for the people out there going, who is this crazy chick with the dinosaur mug? So for those of you who are new to the show, welcome. My name is Cozy Belloso. I'm a physical therapist here in Tampa, Florida. I've been a PT for a little over 23 years, and my passion is working with the amputee and limb loss community. So for those of you who are new to the show, the ritual is you must introduce yourself. We don't like anybody to be shy here. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and most importantly, what is in your mug. And if you have a dinosaur mug, cheers to you as well. Hey, Jill, good to see you. We got Pamela coming in from New York as well. So guys, my phone is running out of battery, so I'm going to get to the questions that came in on my phone before I lose battery. First question, well, it was more of a comment from Josh, because we've had a lot of discussions about knee disarticulations on the show the past couple of weeks, and we got another one tonight as well. Josh says, obviously the best parts of being a knee disartic is the limb length, right? And the ability to bear weight on the end of the limb. Things that we discussed last week, right? Worst part is having clearance or having your knees be a different height. And yes, this is definitely one of the parts about being a knee disarticulation, one of the cons of it, right? That when it comes to having the knees level, your prosthetist needs to be super, super on the ball about that. And it may not be super level. A lot of people will choose to use what's called a polycentric knee. It's also called a 4-bar linkage knee, right? And it looks kind of cool when you look at the polycentric knee and you kind of bend it open, you see the little bars. So that's why they kind of call it a 4-bar knee. And those knees, when they bend, they give the illusion of being shortening, right? So for cases like knee disarticulation, where you want the person to be able to clear their leg and not stub their toes, a polycentric knee might be a really great option there. He says, I thought it would be a major difference once I became an AK, but honestly, I haven't noticed a difference other than not being able to put full weight into the residual limb. Just kind of a strange feeling. And every CPO and doctor I ever had growing up just referred to me as an AK. And most of the KDs I've known have been lifelong amputees. And again, this is something, I can't remember who I was just having a conversation with this past week. Kurt, one of the prosthetists I really admire, he and I were having a discussion about knee disarticulations. And, you know, it's one of those things where I keep bonking my head against the wall, because I'm just like, why aren't we talking about this more? Why aren't we talking about this more? And it's something that very rarely will you see me just go head to head with a surgeon. But when it comes to knee disarticulations and the consideration of doing a knee disarticulation instead of an above the knee amputation, if the tissue is viable, that is something I would take on. That is something I would strongly advocate for. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that with another question that's coming up this evening. All right, we got Marianne saying it's a beautiful day in South Dakota with 74 degrees. Holy smokes, Marianne, that's like summer for you guys. Emily coming in from Central PA with her hot French vanilla macchiato. Very nice. Van Gregory. Oh, Van Gregory, you got to brag a little bit, man. You just did a 5K and you busted out an amazing time, Van Gregory. It made me so happy to see that post that you put up there. Yes, Rollo, the Alex polycentric knee. Yes. Yes. So in the world of microprocessor knees, and guys, there's dozens and dozens of knees out there. So I don't know them all, but I do know that there is at least one polycentric microprocessor knee. It is the Alex. Yes. Rollo, if you're using it, I'd love to hear your input on it. We got Christine coming in from Michigan as well. Okay, let's go, because I'm trying to get to these questions before I lose my battery on my phone. Okay, so Ashley sent me a picture. And we're not going to post a picture, but she sent me a picture of her residual limb, and there is an open area. It's a wound looking there. And, you know, it's got like kind of like a white macerated looking tissue, a little bit yellow on the inside and redness around the outside of the wound. So her questions were, you know, like, I'm getting a wound care consult. I'm afraid I'm going to have to keep my leg off for a while. And I'm like, yeah, looking at this, yes. And those of you who've watched my show, you know that when it comes to skin and skin health, I do not play around, right? If someone has open skin, whether it's because of a blister, shearing, or an ulcer that is forming, it is game over for the prosthetic leg. Okay, that skin needs to heal. All right. Hey, Jenny. Oh, yeah, girl, you need your hot shower and your stretchy pants and some good Netflix, girl. But I appreciate you jumping on board. It's good to see you, girl. All right. And let's see. Let's give a quick shout out to my Instagram folks. We got Scott jumping on board. Good to see you, Scott. We got Charles Taylor, Chuck Taylor. Man, that'd be pretty cool if it was Chuck Taylor jumping on board. We got Dr. Marianic on board. We got Nancy Core, Chuck Williams, Nancy, another Nancy and Genre, and Elle Berg jumping on board. So guys on Instagram, thank you for being a part of this. Feel free to put your question in the comments section as well. Okay, so when it comes to these knee wounds, guys, if it's something more complicated than a blister, you need to really get that taken care of. At some point in your life as an amputee, even if you have the healthiest skin, at some point, you're going to get some kind of skin breakdown or skin rash or something or other. Okay. And I always tell people, if it's something that like a lot of people, they know their skin, right? They've had issues, they've gone to the prosthetist, they've gone to the PT or the doctor, and they've got it taken care of. If it's your first time having a wound, first time, you need to get it taken care of. You need to get it looked at because you need to know what it is that you're looking at. Okay, in this case right here, Ashley, definitely that is an open wound that is now considered an ulceration. Okay, and I don't want you to get scared off by the word ulceration. It sounds really mean, but okay, all that means is you've broken through the skin right there. Okay, and I do think they need to do a culture just to make sure that there's nothing cooking underneath there. And it sounds like you're going to be getting an x-ray to make sure there's nothing deeper inside of there. So chances are they may have to debride the wound, meaning they may have to give it a good cleaning just to see where is the bottom of that wound. Okay, so when you start having that ulceration, a lot of times there's a lot of sludgy crap sitting on the top of that wound, right? It can be like a yellow slough, a black slough, eschar, just junky stuff sitting on top of the wound. So what the wound care team is going to try to do is they want to get to the bottom of that wound to get to that healthy tissue, okay? Because A, they can see how deep the wound is, and B, they can also expose that healthy tissue so that it can start to granulate and fill in. Because if you have all that sludgy stuff sitting on that, it's not going to be able to granulate in and get that new healthy skin in there. Ashley says, after an x-ray to rule out the possibility of bone floating around, the results are bone demineralization and osteomyelitis cannot be ruled out. Not sure what questions I should ask when I go back to wound care tomorrow. Okay, your wound care team, the questions you need to ask are, if this is osteomyelitis, they should be starting you on some flavor of antibiotic, right? That's usually how, because it means that there is an infection potentially in the bone. That's what osteomyelitis means. Okay, so those are the questions you need to ask. Is there an infection? Are you going to be debriding the wound? For sure, Ashley, I don't care what the wound care team will tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. No wearing your leg. You have to keep that leg free of the prosthesis until that wound is completely healed. Okay. And guys, the reason is if you put something on top of a wound, it's just going to keep opening up again and again and again. And all those new delicate skin cells that are trying to grow in, they're going to get sheared right off. Okay. Even if you put a bandage on it, even if you put padding on it, game over. Okay. You got to leave it off. You got to let that wound heal properly. Is it a pain in the neck? Yes, absolutely. Especially for someone as active as yourself, Ashley, because you are so active in your life and you have so much to do. Okay. But you got to pull out those crutches or the walker, whatever you feel most comfortable in your workday. And that's what you got to use. And I'm very glad that you're going to a wound care doctor. Guys, I'll take a side note and say this, there's so many times where I've had many of you send me pictures of your wounds or ulcerations, and it just makes me go, oh dear heavens. Okay, why hasn't your doctor sent you to a wound care doctor yet? And guys, all respect to our doctors, sometimes they're not aware that there's a wound care specialist nearby. Okay, sometimes general doctors, general practitioners will try to handle these wounds on their own. Some of them know what they're doing, some of them do not. Okay, so if you have a wound and you're going to your GP, your general practitioner, you should be asking, hey, can I get a referral to a wound care center? Okay, especially if you have diabetes, any other issues going on, you want someone who's a wound care specialist taking care of these wounds. All respect to the GPs. Okay. All right, we got Ernest coming in saying it's been a hot minute. Henry from the VA in San Diego. Welcome back, Henry. Good to see you. Let's see. Hey, Harsh, there we go. We got Pastor David on board. There's my guys right there. All right, let's see what else we got. Sorry, phone running low on battery. So I want to get all these questions before we move on to the other questions. Kevin, I don't know if you're listening tonight, but man, you just sent me the sweetest message and I really appreciate that message. So thank you very much. And then hopefully you're here tonight. Let's see. Ooh, this was a really nice question. I've never had this question before. And I'm like, how have I never had this question on the show before? So this question came in from Susie. She says, I'm an AK above the knee. I would like some guidance and advice on prenatal exercises that are safe for us. I'm currently 25 weeks pregnant and struggling to stay flexible and ready for labor in a few months. So first of all, congratulations, Susie. bringing a child into the world. I have 4 of my own. Congratulations. And I don't know if this is your first pregnancy, but again, congratulations. So here's the thing with pregnancy and exercise, and this is a very general umbrella recommendation. I strongly recommend, first of all, that you seek out a pelvic floor specialist. Okay. These are physical therapists that specialize in the pelvic floor. So, what is the pelvic floor? Basically, where you sit down on a horse, when you sit in a saddle, the part of you that is touching the horse, that is all your pelvic floor, right? So, men have a pelvic floor, women have a pelvic floor. Some differences there, right? So, with pregnancy, your body is undergoing these heroic changes, right? Magical changes to accommodate the weight of the child and also to prepare your body for labor. One of those biggest changes is that you will have a lot of ligamentous laxity. Okay, so because of the hormones coursing through your body, your ligaments are going to become loose. So ligaments all over your body from head to toe, right? And that is to accommodate for the growth of the baby and also the ability to deliver the baby, right? So we don't, so that's how it works, right? So when you are pregnant, you have to be very careful about protecting your joints, right? Because of these ligaments being loose, your joints are going to be more prone to being hypermobile. And this includes the joints in your spine. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes I see women, pregnant women, doing these crazy yoga moves where they're doing headstands. And it just makes me want to cover my eyes because they're putting all that stress onto their spine. And all those ligaments are super loose. Okay, so want to protect those joints. The pelvic floor, again, another really important issue for both men and women as we age. That pelvic floor is made up of muscles, and those muscles tend to stretch out and sag, and they can get very weak during pregnancy, during the labor process, and during the aging process. Men, you're not free of this either. This is something that as men get older, they also start to experience this issue as well. Okay, so going to see a pelvic floor specialist is probably the best thing you can do as a pregnant woman and as a woman, period. Okay. This is something that should be a regular part of your OBGYN care moving forward. Okay. So after the labor process, once again, going to see that pelvic floor therapist to help rebuild that pelvic floor and make it strong again. And it's especially important as an above the knee amputee. Why? Because when you're using a prosthesis, you're putting even more pressure on that pelvic floor, okay? Because you're having to use that much more energy, okay? And again, this applies to my men as well. So this is something to keep in the back of your minds, gentlemen. So go see that pelvic floor therapist. When it comes to exercise and pregnancy guidelines, again, obviously following the guidelines that your OBGYN recommends to you because they know you, right? I don't know you. Usually I see, what is the woman doing prior to the pregnancy? Okay. Was she an active woman? Was she already doing strength training? Was she already doing some form of cardio? And that's going to help determine what her body is going to be able to tolerate during the pregnancy itself. Okay. If you were not someone who was regularly exercising, pregnancy is not the time to start doing a hardcore exercise. Not just exercise, just hardcore. Okay. Walking is the best exercise you can do as a pregnant woman. Swimming is the best, one of the other best exercises you can do as a woman. Can you do strengthening during pregnancy? Yes, you can do strengthening during pregnancy. But again, you have to do strengthening in a way that's going to protect those joints and it's going to protect the pelvic floor. And for this, once again, I recommend that you go see a pelvic floor therapist because they can guide you through this process. Okay. I am so glad that nowadays we are understanding that exercise during pregnancy is actually a good thing. It helps during the pregnancy, it helps during the labor process, and it helps during the recovery process afterwards. Okay. So I'm glad that we've had such a huge shift in how we think about pregnancy and exercise, even since when I was pregnant for the first time 18 years ago. Holy cow, I can't believe my oldest is already 18, right? But we're seeing a huge shift. And the fact that we now have specialists in my profession for pregnant women. Okay, so there you go. And the best way is, honestly, if you just Google a pelvic floor physical therapist in my area, you're going to get a whole list. There's a lot of them exploding everywhere around the corner. Okay. Phew. Okay, Ashley says, I haven't used the crutches since my labrum repair back in July, scared to aggravate the shoulder, and that's what worries me. Okay, Ashley, in that case, and I don't blame you, girl, because you don't want to aggravate that labrum. One thing to think about is if you have the wheelchair, and I know that's a total pain to have to use a wheelchair after you're being so mobile, but again, you want this wound care, you want this wound healed properly, you want it healed as quickly as possible. Hey there, Jill from Wisconsin. No snow for 2 days. Holy cow. I lost 8 centimeters at several levels of residual leg as a right AK, so get better fitting socket tomorrow. Good. Congratulations, Jill, and I hope you really get a good fitting socket. Hey there, Glenn. Thank you. I had a wonderful spring break, and man, it's good to be back. Let's see. Pam says, I had a dermatologist make a sore worse by freezing it to boost the healing. Looking forward to seeing a wound care specialist. Okay. Well, don't know if I've ever heard. And again, dermatologists for me are actually kind of cool people when it comes to the skin issues. I actually recommend a lot of my patients that they have a dermatologist in their Rolodex. Because again, at some point, especially living here in Florida, you're going to get some kind of rash when you're using a prosthesis. Usually it's like a heat rash, but sometimes it can turn into a bacterial issue or a fungal issue. So I actually really like having a dermatologist on board. When it comes to wound care, again, to me, it more depends on the dermatologist. The dermatologist that I have here in town, I know that he can handle wound care very well. In terms of freezing the wound, okay. Again, I'm trying to get into the brain of what your dermatologist was thinking. Sometimes when you have a wound that is considered to be stagnant, meaning it's just sitting there, it's not getting worse, but it's not getting better. Sometimes you have to stimulate the wound to get the inflammatory process to start again, to get it to start healing again. Okay. And again, I did wound care for many years. Back in the day when we were doing that, we would take like a tiny little scalpel and we would just kind of gently scrape the wound very carefully, again, just to stimulate it, to get it to start doing that again. Again, guys, this is obviously something a wound care specialist should be doing, not anything at home, right? But when it comes to the healing, I don't know if they were just trying to put some silver nitrate on it to get it to stimulate it to do that. I don't know, Pam, but if your wound is not getting any better, definitely wound care specialist. I mean, there's just no substitute there. Yes, we definitely, guys, we have, if any of you guys are in the Lakeland, Central Florida area, we have an amazing pelvic floor PT that I can recommend. Her name is Kristen Klaponis. And certainly in Central Florida, I have connections with pelvic floor PTs in this area. So guys, thankfully there's so many of them around that you can just, like I said, Google pelvic floor PT in my area. Paul, we still need to schedule that lunch. I have not forgotten. Let's see. Emily says, my physiatrist suggested diaper cream on a wound on my bottom a few years ago. I went to wound care and ended up needing surgery. Yeah. And again, guys, I'm playing Monday morning quarterback and it's easy for me to do that right now. But I've heard some horror stories when it comes to wound care, and some of the stuff that has come into my clinic is absolutely horrifying sometimes when I hear about the wounds. And again, if it's one of those things that when they first taught me in wound care, if you don't know what you're looking at, refer out, right? So, if you're having a wound, especially for diabetic and as an amputee, don't mess around. And guys, I'll even go a step further and say, don't wait until you have a wound to go looking for that wound care specialist. In your list of doctors and things and medical team that you should already have, posted to your fridge, obviously your general practitioner, if you're a woman, OBGYN, if you have diabetes or any kind of thing like that, you have your endocrinologist on board. Your physical therapist, you should have a physical therapist and a relationship with one. Obviously, your prosthetist as well. A dermatologist, and then a wound care specialist. Just look around in your area because you don't want to have to go scrambling trying to find one frantically when you need it. You want to have that already on board. Yeah, Ashley. And again, it gives me no pleasure, Ashley, when I have to be the bad person and say, you can't use your leg because of a wound. And it's something that over the years, I've never gotten used to that as a PT and having to say, you're grounded from your leg, because it is incredibly frustrating. But it's even more frustrating when that wound just won't heal. Hey there, Victor. Glad you could join us in from the YouTube channel, guys. Just as a reminder, I am broadcasting from YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So you can find me on all three. I am going to take the opportunity, guys, to go ahead and do my usual shameless plugging for anybody who's listening. Text COSI Talks to 855. Let me see if I can get this number right. All right, so for those of you who are not on my texting list or my texting service yet, I would highly encourage you to do so. I promise I don't send spam. I don't sell your number. I don't do any of that crazy nonsense. All I do is I send you links when I go live, because a lot of people find it easier to click on the links I send to find me live. And then you can also send me your questions, text me your questions directly. So that's one of the ways that you can get in touch with me. Please consider signing up for the texting service. All right, I'm looking to see what are my next questions because my phone is saying, I'm going to shut down on you. All right, I think I did everything. Wait, from the, okay, nope, looks like I got all the questions from there. So now I can move on to the questions that came in. Okay, so let's talk about the hallmark question for tonight, okay? There's actually two really good questions. So I'm gonna deal with the one, someone was asking me about telehealth physical therapy. And this has always kind of been it's an interesting conversation. There's certain hot button topics in the world of physical therapy. One of the hot button topics is, should we be called doctors, DPTs, right? That's one hot button topic. I'm not going to get into that one tonight because that'll just keep me talking for 3 hours. Another hot button topic is, should physical therapists do telehealth physical therapy? Okay. So just a little bit of a history. Telehealth, and again, I have to admit, I have to recheck things, but last time I checked, back when we had COVID, and we had the shutdowns at the time, Trump was president, and he allowed for telehealth to occur across state lines. Meaning, if you were in Florida, you could have a doctor consulting with you in telehealth from Kansas. Okay. He did not, however, include physical therapists in that telehealth rule, whatever you called it. Okay, allowance, whatever it was called. So as it stands, a physical therapist can technically do telehealth, but it has to be in a state in which they are licensed. Okay, I am licensed in the state of Florida. I can only do telehealth on other people in the state of Florida. Okay, if I were licensed in another state, then I could also telehealth to patients in that state. Okay, and that is my umbrella understanding of how telehealth works in physical therapy. Now, I'm sure at some point you all have seen physical therapists advertising telehealth. Okay, here are my thoughts, and I'm trying to like organize my thoughts so it kind of makes sense. Do I think a physical therapist can give good physical therapy over telehealth? No, I don't. Do I think a physical therapist can do a fitness program over telehealth? Sometimes. Okay. When I started doing the show and when we had the shutdowns and I was creating, my COSI Talks video and strong body program, one of the main reasons I created this program was because I saw that there were a lot of fitness programs popping up online for the general public, but nothing specifically for amputees. So that was one of my biggest motivators for creating this program, is to provide a fitness program and then also a clinical resource tool for physical therapists treating amputees, right? And then many people were telling me, hey, COSI, you should really do online telehealth fitness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it out. I'm going to take one client and I'm going to try fitness telehealth, not physical therapy, fitness telehealth, right? So I had a client. She was an absolutely lovely lady, very high level functioning individual. She had been an amputee for most of her life, and she was already walking independently and doing pretty well. And we did pretty well across doing a fitness program for her. But here's things that I learned in doing that telehealth fitness program. Number one, I didn't like it. I liked her. I liked my client, but I didn't like not being able to interact with my client or my patient. I wasn't able to be there in person. That's why I became a physical therapist, so I could be there in person, putting my hands all over the people, right? I know it sounds kind of creepy, but that's why I became a physical therapist, right? And number two, because she was an amputee, she was able to do these fitness exercises that I was showing her. Yes. But there were so many things that needed to be addressed from a gait standpoint, right? And that's what is unique to the amputee. There were so many things that needed to be included in her fitness program to correct and work on her gait. And you cannot do that on telehealth. I'm sorry, you cannot. A big reason is because your hands have to be on the person to be able to facilitate a lot of these things. Now, do I think you can do fitness, telehealth, physical therapy, telehealth for someone who is an able-bodied runner? Or, yes. So can you do fitness over telehealth on someone who doesn't have any injuries and is looking for a fitness program who is not an amputee? Yes. But if you're an amputee, again, you need to be in person. You need to be in person. There is so much that you have to do to assess a person, to facilitate what they're doing. And this, guys, this is also kind of a reflective of physical therapy as a profession right now. I have a lot of friends, and just in my personal life, whatever, my mom's friends, the aging population around me, etc. And they'll come to me, hey, Kosi, I'm going to a physical therapist, my shoulder, my back, my this, my that, whatever. And I'll ask them, okay, so what's the physical therapist doing with you? And if at no point in time they're telling me that the physical therapist has put hands on them, that's a huge red flag for me, guys. Okay. Physical therapists and all the treatments that we do, we're constantly having to assess our patients with our hands and our eyes, right? You can't do that over a computer screen. You can't. Okay. So when I hear about people doing physical therapy over telehealth, I just kind of go, no. Fitness consultation, all right, we'll talk about that. That's like a different story. But physical therapy, no. Your physical therapist needs to be putting their hands all over you. And I know it sounds kind of creepy, but that's how they're assessing you. And that's how they're also facilitating movement. And especially as an amputee, your gait is going to be the foundation of everything that you do. Your strengthening program, your cardio program, it's going to kind of always go back to gait and fixing the gait. Now, do I think you can do consultation and things like that? Yes, of course. And that's actually one of those things I'm thinking of doing, is doing the consultation program. But that's much different than doing physical therapy. Okay. Ernest says, I didn't like telehealth at all during COVID shutdown. I need to be able to handle my patients. I need the physical interaction between the patient and me. Yes. And guys, it's something that, I think it's kind of unique to our profession in that regard. PT, OT, speech. We don't have the benefit of ordering x-rays or MRIs or things like that. So we're constantly using our hands to assess what is going on with our patients. And then the treatments itself. Again, so many of my treatments are hands on my patients, and I'm not even an orthopedic manual therapist, right? I'm not even an orthopedic manual therapist. Those guys really spend their whole time with the hands on the patient, or they should be, right? Scott's asking, so should a PT look at stump or take leg off to see if it's on right? Ones I've had never did this. Absolutely, Scott. Yes. The first thing I do when I have a brand new patient coming to see me is I'm like, take everything off, including the other shoe on your sound leg. Okay. Yes, absolutely. And if I have a patient, like for example, one patient I have right now, he's very advanced. He's actually doing incredibly well. His skin is awesome. So when he comes to see me for his weekly visits, usually I can just ask him, hey, how's your skin doing? Any problems this week? And he's like, no, I'm good. And I know he's good, right? I can trust him. I've built that rapport with him. He's also learned and received all the education from me on skincare. But if I have a patient who's new, or I have a patient who has troublesome skin, then yeah, they need to be checking that every single time they come into your clinic. Absolutely. Emily says, I personally like the in-person PT rather than a home program for some of the things due to physical limitations because it's my mobility. Yes. And it's not to say, guys, I know I'm kind of trashing my own program here. It's not to say that you can't have a home fitness program. Of course you can have a home fitness program, Okay. But that's kind of once you're established, once you've already met most of your functional mobility goals and you're kind of in a maintenance mode. Okay. And I do have some patients, they'll check in with me once a month, once every few months, and just say, hey, Cozy, can you adjust my fitness program? And they're doing fine, and off they go. Okay. No, and then Paul's absolutely right. He says the PTs are wasting your time and not competent in amputee care. And guys, you hear me sometimes kind of throw prosthetists under the bus, throw doctors under the bus, but I'll throw a PT under the bus too. I will say that there's PTs out there that they don't know amputee care, and I don't blame them for it. But what I get upset is when I hear about a PT treating an amputee and doing a piss poor job of it. Okay, instead of either making an effort to educate themselves or at least referring the patient to someone who is experienced with amputee care, or making the effort to make contact with someone. In today's day and age, with all the technology we have with Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, guys, you just Google amputee PT and you're going to see my name pop up, and you're going to see other of my colleagues' names pop up. So in that regard, I will put my colleagues' feet to the fire and say, if you don't have the knowledge to treat amputees, that's fine. That's fine. But do something about it. Either get the education or find someone who can guide you along the way. Okay. So again, I get really fired up about this, but those are my thoughts. Y'all ask the question, I'm gonna give you an answer. Ben Gregory, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Paul says physical therapy is first, last, and always a hands-on profession. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I take great pride. And actually, Paul, I'm gonna embarrass him a little bit. He's probably one of the top 5 PTs I've met in my life in terms of manual skills and diagnostic skills. I am very proud of my profession in the sense of the skills that we have to assess, diagnose, and treat the musculoskeletal and nervous system of the human body. Okay. But in order to do that, our hands have to be on the patients, right? All the time. All the time. All right. Let's see. We've got Emily saying, I had a hyperbaric oxygen therapy in 2015 after having osteomyelitis in my right heel. It saved my right leg and was luckily covered by insurance. Yeah. No, hyperbarics has been around for quite some time. It was around actually when I started learning about wound care and working in that 25, 26 years ago now. So it's really cool. It just kind of basically you're pushing oxygen into that area, into that circulation, into that wound, so that it can just kind of feed off of that. Yeah. And again, it's sometimes covered by insurance, sometimes it's not covered by insurance, but I do think it's a very good tool for wound care. Sorry, guys, kind of flipping through these comments back here. Victor is asking, do I know of an adaptive golf pro in Sarasota? Okay, you just triggered a memory. I think his name is John Bell. John Bell. I'm seeing his face in my mind, and I've seen him at conferences. Heck of a guy. He runs, and guys, please forgive me, I am not a golf person. Oh, good heavens, this is a little embarrassing because he's told me about his organization. It's a phenomenal organization for adaptive golf, and it's big. Can somebody Google John Bell adaptive golf and just see what comes up? Because yeah, there is an organization out there, and I think it's in Florida, based in Florida too. Let's see. All right. Let me go back to the other question. Okay, so here's the other really kind of interesting question, and it kind of goes back to a lot of the knee disarticulation talks that we've been having. So this particular individual emailed me. He fell and severed his patella tendon. So the patella tendon is the one that goes from your quadriceps. Sorry, guys, I'm flipping through screens here, reading my notes. Okay, tell me you're the mom of a teenage girl without telling me you're the mom of a teenage girl. I am making my daughter's prom dress, and it looks like you guys can't see right now, but my entire room is covered in pink fabric and glitter. It looks like Tinkerbell went on a bender over here. And Bob apparently was wearing the dress, the top part of the prom dress. Anyways, okay, so Bob, come here, you're on. Tell me you're a mom of a teenage girl, right? Okay, so quadriceps, right? We got the quadriceps. That's that big, fat, juicy set of muscles on the front part of your thigh. It all connects here, right at the bottom of your kneecap, your patella. So it's going to connect right here. Nice big tendon there. So apparently this individual knocked that tendon out. And as a result, I'm reading the issues and has had numerous infections, numerous repairs, limb salvage, and apparently things are not going well in that regard. And this particular individual is a nurse in the operating room, OR nurse, and has worked in ICU as well as the emergency department. So needless to say, this individual is a physically demanding job that requires him to be on his feet for most of the day. And apparently he is contemplating an amputation, specifically an above the knee amputation, because it seems like the limb salvage surgeries are not really working. He was asking that he had been doing some research for life as an amputee, and he had learned about osseointegration and also the different types. He's not sure a socket prosthetic will work due to the fact that he has to be on his feet for so many hours a day, and sweat and stump size variations, etc. And should he consider osteo? So here are my thoughts on this, guys. Connection is not great. Guys, my connection is kind of spotty right now. Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Can you guys give me a thumbs up? All right. So we got a couple of questions here from Instagram that I'm going to take care of in just a moment. I'm in and out. Okay. I'm just going to give it like a few seconds to see if my internet connection can just reestablish. And I'm going to drink my dinosaur coffee while I wait for that to happen. Choppy every now and then. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay. So recap, in case you guys missed everything of what I just said. This particular individual, he had a pretty nasty injury to his patellar tendon. He's had multiple surgeries and infections to attempt to save the leg, and it looks like it's not doing great. And he is a nurse in the OR emergency room ICU. So basically on his feet all day, heavy duty lifting, heavy physically demanding job. He's considering osseointegration, and he wanted to know my thoughts. Okay, so first thing that came to my mind is, can he become a knee disarticulation? And most of you guys are going to be like, oh boy, here she goes again. Because I don't know what's been in the water, guys, lately, but the past few weeks, we've been talking about knee disarticulations like crazy. Technically, they only comprise of 2% of the amputee population. Okay. But for whatever reason, like I said, there's something in the water or something, the moon's out tonight, and we've got a lot of knee disarticulation questions. It's something that I think needs to be talked about more, because I don't think, I think there's a lot of surgeons out there who perhaps are not considering knee disarticulation. What I hear a lot of on the grapevine, on the professional grapevine, and also from hearing from you all for several years, is many doctors, when they have to do revisions and they go from below the knee, then they go to above the knee. And they don't consider the in-between part, the knee disarticulation part. Okay. Why this is, I don't know. I have some theories. Many surgeons and doctors think that it's not as cosmetically appealing because you have that bulbous end. Many of them think that it will make wearing a prosthesis impossible and very difficult, and it will not give the person a good quality of life in terms of their mobility. Okay. So those are particular talking points that I respectfully disagree with. Okay. With a knee disarticulation, will it look different? Yes, you're going to have a slightly more bulbous end at the end of that limb because you are still retaining these part right here. It's called the femoral condyles. Okay. But the number one reason a person should try to become a knee disartic, if it's possible, the long lever arm. Okay. And as a knee disarticulation, the person can weight bear through the end of that bone. You cannot weight bear through the end of your femur. You cannot weight bear through the end of your tibia if it's cut mid-shaft. Okay, you can weight bear through the end of that bone. And then also when it comes time to make your prosthesis and align your prosthesis, your prosthetist can fix that femur very, very stable, very stable. It will not be flip-flopping around in that socket the way it is when you are an above the knee amputee. Okay, and those of you who are above the knee amputees, you're nodding your head going, yep, that's exactly what happens sometimes is when you try to fix that in, right? Now, when the cons to it is, yes, when it comes to prosthetic fitting, it's going to be a bit more challenging. You're going to be a little more limited in the choice of knees because you have to adjust for build height. Your prosthetist has to be very clever when it comes to trying to keep the knees as even as possible, right? And that's also with good alignment, all right? And then also, no, that's basically it. It's basically a prosthetic thing, okay? Now, if a surgeon says we do not have enough viable tissue, that's a different story. If they're saying there is not enough good circulation and we have to go above the knee, okay, then you go above the knee. But if the surgeon is saying we're not going to do a knee disartic because it doesn't look good, because the prosthesis is going to be impossible to fit, sorry, no, that is one time I will put my foot down, pun intended, and say, no, that is not a reason not to consider a knee disarticulation. Okay. And I had a big old soapbox on this a couple of weeks back. When it comes to knee disarticulations, guys, when I see someone out in the community who's wearing pants, who's a knee disarticulation, even I have to do a double take to see, wait a second, that's not a real knee. That's a prosthetic knee. Okay. That's how good knee disarticulations can walk compared to an above the knee. Okay. It truly is a difference in the lever arm. And it's funny, I was getting, on my soapbox about this a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, okay, Kosi, you need to chill out for a second and talk to your colleagues, because maybe there's something here that you're missing as to why surgeons are reluctant to do knee disarticulations. And I talked to several of my colleagues, prosthetists and physical therapists, and they're just like, yeah, no, we definitely want the knee disarticulation. And the prosthetists were all saying, yeah, it's a little bit more of a pain to have to fit for a knee disarticulation, but that's our job. That's our job, is to make it work, right? And I know I've had some of you comment saying your surgeon said, or your prosthetist said you wouldn't be able to run if you were a knee disarticulation. Baloney. Actually, knee disarticulation amputees who are candidates for running, they're amazing runners. They're amazing. They really are. They do phenomenal. So yeah, those are my thoughts. So going back to the question of this particular nurse who's considering above the knee, below the knee, or excuse me, above the knee amputation, first thing I would tell him is to ask his surgeon, does he have enough soft tissue, healthy soft tissue to do a knee disarticulation, right? And they do not do osseointegration. I was actually talking to the Integrum team just this past week. They do not do osseointegration in a knee disarticulation. It's only, they have to transect and go into the femur. Okay, so it's not like you can say, well, do a knee disarticulation and then do osseointegration. No, I'm sorry. But even the Integrum team, when we were talking on all chatting together, and I was like, okay, guys, so what do you think? Is it better for someone to be in a socket with a knee disarticulation or as an above the knee with osseointegration? And they said knee disarticulation with a socket, because you're getting that long lever arm and you're getting that weight bearing through there. Okay, so that's the first thing. And I'm dumping all this information. I hope this individual is able to watch this show and take all this information back to their surgical team and just say, hey guys, if this is a possibility to do a knee disarticulation, can we please consider it? Second thing I would tell you with a knee disarticulation, take the patella out. I very rarely hear someone, like, it's not really done anymore to leave the patella, the kneecap in there. But like I said, I don't know what's been in the water, full moon out, I don't know what's going on. But the last couple of people that emailed me about knee disarticulation problems, they still have their patella in there. Okay, again, very rarely is that being done. That's a pretty archaic technique, but again, just a question to ask your surgeon if this is something that you're going to have done. Okay. All right. Let's read some of these comments coming in through here. Paul says the surgeons do not take into account the well-studied concepts of energy expenditure, forgetting that this can be way more important than aesthetics regarding a knee disarticulation. Yes. Yes. Okay. And guys, even when it comes to the cosmetic side, because I get it, the cosmetic side is something you want to take into consideration. There are times where the surgeon can shave down those femoral condyles just a little bit, especially if someone has particularly huge femoral condyles. They can be shaved down just a little bit. Okay. But guys, I've seen knee disarticulations, and when they have a socket on, it looks great. It looks good. Again, get a good prosthetist. Problem solved, right? I know it's not that easy. Robert says, I'm a knee disarticulation and do not have a knee, but I have a little bend like I have a knee. Yes. So you don't have a knee. You're absolutely right, Robert. As a knee disarticulation, you do not have an anatomical knee, but you have an intact femur, right? Come here, Bob. Oh, man, he's missing an arm. He is just bad shape. Your femur is completely intact. Okay, so yes, that extra inch that you have, first of all, in the lever arm, and again, being able to fixate that femur and stabilize it in the socket. Huge, huge. Okay. Jerry Ann is asking, how does that work for bilaterals knee disarticulation? It works just fine. It works just fine, Jerry Ann. It works, if I had to choose between becoming a bilateral knee disarticulation versus bilateral above the knee, bilateral knee disartic. There's actually one gentleman on Facebook. He's been around for a really long time. And again, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Trevor, his name is Trevor, phenomenal young man. And he's been an amputee. He's essentially a congenital amputee. He says it himself. I think he had his amputations before he was even 2 years old. And I believe he's a bilateral knee disarticulation. He's done an Ironman. He's done an Ironman competition, guys. Ironman. So that means swimming 2 miles, biking 120 miles, and then running a marathon. That's an Ironman race. Trevor did it. Bilateral knee disartic. So yeah. I'm a huge favor of saving the joint as long as possible. Now, and this is going to ruffle some feathers here, and I know whose feathers they're going to ruffle. When it comes to a SIME amputation. Okay, so a SIME amputation is where they just take out the foot. Okay, so they just disarticulate the foot and these are left. That's a different story. That I see both sides of the equation. So the difference being a SIME's amputation versus being a long below the knee amputation. I do think that there is a case for both. But we can save that one for later because I'm just going to be here all night if I start up on that one. So Robert says, I have my patella. Robert, if you don't mind my asking, do you have any issues with your patella? Okay, Marty, and quads remain attached. Yes. So again, guys, remembering, thank you for bringing up that point, Marty. With a knee disarticulation, those muscles are intact. Your quadriceps and your hamstrings are intact. The surgeon will take the tendon from those muscles and they attach it into the ligaments in the knee, right? You got 2 big juicy ligaments sitting in your knee, and those ligaments connect the femur to the tibia. It's connected by 2 big fat ligaments, the ACL and the PCL, and you got a couple of other ligaments hanging around there. But those are the 2 big ones, right? So in a knee disarticulation, the surgeon takes those muscles and attaches it to those tendons. Right? And then, and again, I'm not a surgeon, guys. This is just me from what I read in I have a bunch of surgery textbooks here because I'm a big nerd. One of the things I read was that in terms of surgical procedures, a knee disarticulation procedure is actually considered to be surgically easier compared to an above the knee amputation. There's less blood loss. If you can think about it, there's no muscles being transected, right? So in general, as a surgery, it's even a little bit easier to do when compared to an above the knee amputation. We need to have a surgeon on board. I think I'm going to pick on one of my surgeons. Next time I have one of my surgeons on board, we're going to kind of pick on them a little bit in a nice way. We're going to pick on them in a nice way. We're going to pick on them in a nice way. And we're going to ask them what their opinion is on this. We're going to change this, guys. We're going to change surgeons, how surgeons think about knee disarticulations. We're going to do it. That is going to be one of my missions on the Cozy Talk Show. So Bronze Eagle is asking, so do above knee amputees, do their leg bones not connect? Okay, not sure what you mean by that, but let me just show you what I mean. So with an above the knee amputee, it means that their leg was cut off somewhere from here through here, right? A knee disarticulation, what it means is these bones were removed, this part right here, but all of this is still intact. Okay, so that's the difference between a knee disarticulation, you're disarticulating the joint, versus an above the knee amputation. Okay, so the biggest difference is this part is kept on. This part right here, the condyles. Does that make sense, Bronze Eagle? I hope I answered your question with that. Paul says the voice to text spelled Symes as a sign. I can only imagine what voice text makes of my fishwife voice. All right. Robert says, clarify, I don't have a prosthetic knee or a meat knee, but I can bend my prosthetic like I do have a knee. No issues. My hamstring is attached to the soft tissue below my patella that allows me to bend like a knee. There you go. Emily says, I'm not quite a Symes, but I have most of my lower leg. All right, guys, let me go ahead. Okay, Earl had this question. How do you wear socks with a seal-in socket as an above the knee, starting to bottom out, and I can't get my prosthesis yet, get to my prosthetist yet? Thank you for all you do. Okay, Earl, let me, please hold. I think I have. So in my toy box, I do not have a seal-in liner, but we're going to pretend that this is a seal-in liner. Okay, so a seal-in liner is a form of suspension. So just a reminder, guys, suspension is how your prosthesis is held onto the residual limb. Okay, that is not the same as the shape of the socket. The shape of the socket can contribute to suspension, right? But I like to always make kind of a differentiation between the two. Okay. So suspension is how your leg is held onto your body. And there's a whole bunch of different methods of suspension. One of them is suction suspension. So what that means is when you push your limb into the socket, air is being pushed out through a little valve, and then it creates negative pressure. So it's like when you stick your finger in a Chinese puppet, those little 2-finger Chinese puppet thingies, and your fingers get stuck. That's kind of sort of how suction works. Okay. And it gives you a more intimate fit. It kind of gives you a better sense of proprioception, better connection with the socket itself. Okay. So one of the ways they really just establish that seal and that suction is with a seal-in liner. And I know Oser makes it. I don't know the names of all these liners, guys. Whatever. There's just too many out there for me to remember. And I have too many kids. I need to remember my kids' names first. All right. So with the seal-in liners, it's going to have like these little ribs going around, similar to this, but this is not it. Okay. So it's going to have little ribs going around so that when you push into it, those ribs just kind of like create that seal. Okay. So what happens when you start to lose volume, right? Then if you lose volume, then that seal is not going to be effective. You're going to lose the seal on that suction, right? And you're going to lose the suction and you're going to lose suspension and your leg's going to come off, right? So what's a person to do? A lot of times with these seal-in liners, it's tricky because if you put a sock over the ribbing, then the ribbing can't catch and it can't create that seal, right? So I know what I've seen a lot of my patients do is sometimes we will cut the socks, right? So we'll put the little bottom end of the sock underneath the ribbing. We'll leave the ribbing as it is. And then maybe if they need filling on the top, we'll put like the top part of the sock and fill it in that way. It's kind of a pain. I'm not going to lie, guys. When I have somebody coming in with a seal-in suction liner and they're telling me that they're losing a lot of volume, I'm just like, oh, because it's kind of a pain to try to adjust and figure it out. Sometimes it works where you split the socks up and then you kind of do it that way. A lot of times, usually I'm calling the prosthetist going, help, help me troubleshoot this. And sometimes the prosthetists, they'll work their magic and they'll put a little padding into the inner liner of the socket just to try to get it to fill in the space a little bit better. But that is kind of the drawback sometimes with these seal-in liners, at least from my experience. If I have any prosthetists on board that would love to jump in and put their 2 cents in about that, I welcome that right now. But yeah, so, obviously go see your prosthetist. Let's make sure you do that and see what they have to say. And it might be that you might just be kind of cutting up the socks, but again, the important thing is that seal in, that ribbing, that seal in ring thingy, needs to be open so that it can grab onto the sides of that socket and create that suction. So wish I had a better, Sorry, I think there was one more question. Oh, okay, here we go. Marianne asked, here's a question I was going to ask you and I forgot to. I'm still wearing my stubbies. So Marianne is a bilateral above the knee amputee, and I'm getting to where I can walk pretty well, still using the canes. I'm wondering, why is it that one of my stubbies would turn sideways after I walk a little or do some exercises on the floor or whatever? How can I fix that? I do have adjustable sockets and it's my longer leg that's turning on me. Any ideas? I'd appreciate it. So usually when I see a person's, oh, that's attractive, that just froze. When I see a person's prosthesis turning out, whether it's a stubby, a BK, or an AK, the first thing I think about is like, okay, let's put the leg back on again. Let's take everything off, make sure the liner is not twisted or there's a bug flying around here somewhere. Make sure that it's not twisted, and make sure the liner is put on properly, adjust the fit and adjust the volume. Usually that takes care of the problem. Usually it's just something to do with the fit. The person is losing a little bit of volume. Things are starting to turn out that way. And that usually takes care of it. Another thing you might want to think about is the walking mechanics. When you're using stubbies, you're not going to have a normal gait pattern because you don't have a knee and you don't have an articulating ankle there. So, to get around, it might require certain gait deviations and compensations, and it might cause things to start moving out. So again, checking the fit of that socket. That's probably the number one thing right there I would suggest. Let's see. Jerry Ann says, both of my legs have blocked popliteal. Oof. So someday they said I may have to go higher up on my leg. I'm below the knee now. Have you ever seen or heard of it? Could a person have a knee disarticulation? Yes. But again, Jerry Ann, in your case, the number one thing, guys, and again, I don't want you to go to your surgeons and say, Kosi says you should never do an above the knee amputation, because I don't want to get phone calls from angry surgeons. The surgeon has to be the one to determine if the tissue is viable, if it's healthy tissue. Okay, so if there are issues with circulation, the priority is to make sure that the amputation is done at a level where there is healthy circulation. Okay, if there is not healthy circulation, doesn't matter how long that lever arm is, then that tissue is going to become necrotic. Okay, so Jerry Ann, the question I would ask your surgeon is, do you have enough healthy tissue and circulation to be able to tolerate a knee disarticulation surgery should that day come? Okay. And then the next thing is to ask, what can you be doing to keep that area as healthy as possible? Okay. Dan is asking, couldn't they make a thicker sealant liner? Yes. And so, Dan, that's one of those things where, again, I'm just the dumb PT. So when my patient comes in with a seal-in liner and we're having trouble getting that to fit because of volume issues, I will troubleshoot with my patient with my pair of scissors and socks, because that's basically the tools that I have available to me as a physical therapist. If I can't get it to work with that, then yes, I call the prosthetist and I say, look, this is what we got going on. This person is shrinking out a lot. Do we have any other options? Do we need to put in padding? Sometimes our prosthetists will work their magic I left that socket in the car. Sometimes they'll put padding in between the socket and that flexible inner socket, and they'll put some wedges, and they'll do, they'll work their magic to try to fill in the space a little bit. And sometimes it might mean moving on to a thicker liner. It could mean that they have to redo the socket if there's been enough volume loss there. And I just realized I have not checked in with Instagram. Oh dear. Okay. To Dr. Charles Taylor, yes, you can reach out to me. I put my email address on there. Hang on, guys. I just realized I have to write down this particular question. Sorry, guys. I am writing down a question that someone is asking that I have to look up. Okay, thank you for your patience. Sorry. Nellie asks, hi, pain on my scar tissue. I need help with solutions. I can't wear my prosthesis, and I have an above the knee and TMR done. Nellie, I'm sorry to hear that you're having these issues. Okay, so when it comes to scar tissue, guys, yeah. When I have a patient come in for a consultation, I always look at the scar. I look at the residual limb. I look at all the parts of the residual limb. I look at the other leg, and I'm looking at the scar. And I got my hands on. Y'all know we were hands on, so I'm not kidding. I got my hands on the patient, and I am moving that scar. Okay. So ideally, what I want to see is a scar, obviously, that's completely closed, so we don't have any open areas on the surgical incision. But also I want to see that scar is mobile. Okay. It should be able to move just the way the rest of the skin is moving. It shouldn't be like stuck. Okay. That's what I don't want to see. If I have someone who is fresh out of their amputation, like 4 to 6 weeks out, okay, I might do some scar tissue mobilization. Me, the PT, right? I don't encourage people to do that on their own, right? Unless you're taught by your physical therapist to do it. But usually I'll start working on scar tissue mobilization to break up any potential tissue that's adhering. Once that scar tissue is stuck, it's really can be a challenge. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be a challenge. Back in the day, the only tools that we had available to us were our 2 thumbs. Okay, and you can only get so far pushing into a person's scar that is adhered, seriously. And it was either that or surgical correction. Nowadays, we do have some more options. One of them I think about is cupping. So it's that really funny little like suction cup, like with the little glass jar, and they put a little flame and blow it out, and then they put it on you, and it basically like suction cups onto your arm or to your skin. Right? And it creates these little circular hickeys. I know it sounds really weird. If you've ever seen it, it's just like, woo, but it's really incredible when it comes to loosening up fascia, doing a lot of great myofascial release, and also for scar tissue management. I am not certified in cupping. It's one of those things where if I were 20 years younger, I'd go back and get certified in cupping and also in dry needling. Dry needling is another one that I think has potential for helping with scar tissue management. So if you do have a particularly stubborn scar, and I've had some people who've come in with one that it's just like, man, that scar is stuck, and it's either painful or it's causing skin breakdown in the socket, and we're kind of running up on all the tricks that the prosthetist has, I will make a referral to one of my colleagues who does cupping and dry needling. Okay, so it's something that you can consider. If it's getting to the point where conservative methods are simply not working, and it's impeding your ability to use your socket, it's impeding your ability to function in your life, and it's giving you pain, then I would recommend a surgical consult and see if they can do a scar tissue revision. I would specifically recommend going to see a plastic surgeon, because those are the experts, and they are truly the artists when it comes to soft tissue work. Okay, so yeah, and it's not uncommon that I run into a lot of these problematic scars. A lot of times we're able to manage it with good prosthetic care and just a lot of education on the skin to know how to take care of that skin and make sure it doesn't get sheared and make sure it doesn't get torn in the socket. But yeah, there are times where even the best of prosthetic, magic tricks are just not going to work. And you have to look at that. Mark says a lot of sports people use cupping. Yeah, absolutely. It really, back when it came out a couple of decades ago, people were just like, what is that? It's kind of, but now it's pretty mainstream. And it's actually, I kind of want to get it done myself and just try it out. I've tried dry needling myself. Well, not dry needling myself, meaning my colleague did dry needling on me. And it was pretty amazing, pretty amazing. Again, one of those particular methods that, I wish I had time to go and get certified in. So yeah, Tom says, I use suction and I love it. Yeah, guys, I don't want to bash like suction suspension. Suction suspension is great in a prosthetic socket. It's great. But it does have to be done properly to make sure that you get that good seal in there. Kim says, I've had dry needling before. Best thing ever. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Mark says, she almost undressed me. Mark, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'm sure there's a real good story behind that one, buddy. Okay, let's see. What do we got going on next week? What's next week, guys? Next Wednesday, I don't have my calendar in front of me. It is the beginning of April, so it's going to be Limb Loss Awareness Month. Holy cow, guys. April is going to be bananas for me. I have 3 sponsored shows next month. Okay, 3. I can't even count right. 3 sponsored shows next month. So here's what you guys need to do for me. First of all, you need to sign up for that text messaging service that I just posted earlier. And then sign up for my e-blast. It's on cositalks.com. If you scroll down, you can sign up for my e-blast that way. I'm going to be putting a lot of e-blasts out this next month because I have a lot of amazing speakers coming on the show. We've got Integrum coming on the show. We're going to be talking about alignment with osseointegration. We've got Click Medical coming on board. I'm really excited about the Click Medical show because we're going to be talking about all the different ways you can use a RevoFit socket, including for upper extremity amputations. I'm finally going to get to show my arm amputees some love. And then we're going to finish out the month with College Park because they got a hoopy scoopy new foot out. It's the microprocessor hydraulic foot. It's called the Odyssey IQ. Kind of amazing. So we have a really busy April month. Guys, I also want to say that Click Medical, I'm partnering with Click Medical. I'm partnering with all my sponsors this month. But Click Medical is going to be doing a 30-day giveaway. 30 days of giveaways in April, and they're giving away Cosi Talks subscriptions. So keep your eyes peeled on social media for the Click Medical so that you guys can win one of these subscriptions, because this is something I'm really, really excited about. Don't worry, Mark, I didn't take too many pictures. You're good. You're good. No, I'm kidding. So we've got a lot going on in April, guys, so stick around. And I'm also going to be teaching a CEU course at Brooks Rehab in Jacksonville, Florida, that I'm nervous about, but really, really excited. Emily's asking, what specialty do you feel makes the best wound care doctor? My current doctor is a vascular surgeon, but my new doc is in plastics, pros and cons of each specialty. Honestly, the doctors that I see that specialize in wound care, a lot of times they might be general surgeons, some plastics doctors too. What I see in these wound care centers is that it can be any type of doctor. It's basically a doctor that is taking a vested interest in becoming a wound care specialist. So I have seen some GPs, some general practitioners that become wound care specialists. Okay. And they're amazing at it. They work at the wound care centers, or in the hospitals, it'll be a wound care team. And sometimes the head doctor will either be, it could be an infectious disease doctor, it could be a plastics doctor, it could be a general surgeon. It's basically whichever doctor decides that they want to take on that particular role, and they just, that's what they do. That's what they do. The only time I get a little bit like worried is when someone just goes to see their general doctor. That's not what they do. They do general work, their family practice, internal medicine, and that doctor tries to handle the wound. That's where I see sometimes a lot of things go sideways, okay, because that doctor may not necessarily be seeing wounds day in and day out, day in and day out, and complicated wounds, right? You want the doctor that sees that day in and day out. And then on another note, a lot of times in these wound care teams, the doctor is going to be the one to do your initial, hey, look at your wounds, this is what you need, make the prescriptions. But the nurse practitioner, and in some cases the physical therapist, they're the ones doing the wound care. And let me tell you what, amazing. Wound care nurses, bonkers amazing. Bonkers amazing, right? And physical therapists who specialize in wound care, same. I have some colleagues who are just amazing at wound debridement and wound care. So again, it's not necessarily the actual practitioner, like what their specialty or what the title is behind their name. Is this what they do day in and day out? Is this what they have chosen to specialize in? Does that make sense? All right. All right, guys. With that, I'm going to go finish my dinosaur decaf coffee. Guys, keep an eye on my social media. If you are not already following me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, I would really appreciate it if you could follow my page, like the show, share the show out. It helps grow the reach and get the word out there about this resource. All right, guys, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I will see you next